Good morning, Villa fans, and welcome to a Aston Villa Talks episode. Lots to get through. We've had quite a busy kind of week, really. The win against Fulham, massive 3 points there in the hunt for Champions League places, and the dream still is alive. We've had news about sort of Chris Heck leaving the club at the end of the season. We've also had the under-18s lifting the FA Youth Cup as well. Transfer talk sort of going on, and whispers already starting to, come forward from players coming in and also players going out. So just really wanted to sit down with a nice cup of tea and have a chat with you fellow villains about what's been going on. Let's talk about the Fulham game first of all. I gave an instant match reaction to it. Big 3 points in the hunt of Champions League. And this is basically going to help towards hopefully a fifth place finish. I think we'll get the 4 wins that we need to. I think the next game against Bournemouth is the toughest one, perhaps. Obviously, with United and Spurs having sort of, one eye on a Europa League final. But the Fulham game, it was comfortable to a degree. And then at the end, it looked like we were kind of, not hanging on, but it wasn't as comfortable as it could have been, especially when Fulham went down to 10 men as well. But on the team lineup, I mean, he obviously kept with Pau Torres at left centre back when everyone was calling for Tyrone Mings. He did go with Ian Martin at left back instead of Luca Digne, which was good. And Cash and Konsa made up the back 4. And then in front of that, he went with Youri Tielemans and Kamara. I thought maybe that would be a good opportunity to kind of rest maybe one of them or even both of them. But he obviously went with that, and Youri was our man of the match and our match winner in this game. And then further forward from that, you saw another start for Asensio, which I'll come on to in a little bit, because Asensio, he's gone off the boil recently, hasn't he? Since his explosive start at Villa and doing so well, he's kind of come off that a little bit. And, if you had asked me a month ago, do you want to sign Marco Asensio on a 15 million permanent deal? It would have been 100% yes. But now I think the doubts are kind of creeping into the longevity of this potential deal. They're asking for only 15 million, which isn't too much money in this day and age. And then obviously the wages on top of that will be sort of between 150 and 200,000 a week. And he's 29 years of age. So there's hardly any sort of resale value, even if we did give him a sort of a 2-3 year contract. It kind of brings Coutinho vibes a little bit to me in terms of what we need. Is this a player that we need to bring on board? And the other thing being is that playing Asensio, he only plays one position, which is in that number 10, sort of behind the front man, which then means you're pushing sort of Morgan Rogers out to the right or out to the left to accommodate someone like Asensio. So these are the what you've got to think about when it comes to buying Marco Asensio. Is he going to be a first team player week in, week out? Form has dipped a little bit. He's missed 2 penalties against Southampton, missed that big opportunity against PSG, missed that opportunity against Newcastle when it was put on a plate for him from Martin's cutback. So all these little things are kind of adding up a little bit. And as I said, is there better value players out there? So Marco Asensio started in the 10. Rogers was from the right, and John McGinn started from. Well, McGinn was on the right. I think Rogers was on the left. And then Ollie Watkins up front as well for this one. And Watkins just can't seem to get that one goal to beat Gabby's record. Had 2 magnificent chances in this game. One at the beginning of the second half where Matty Cash again has put it on a plate for him. And I don't know what's happened. He miskicked it. He mistimed it. Didn't make the connection. Went under his foot, whatever it was. And then the second one being a lovely sort of through ball by Morgan Rogers, setting him one-on-one with Bert Leno. And, we've seen this picture so many times with Ollie Watkins. When he has time to think and has to take a few touches, he ultimately gets the finish wrong. He's very much a better instinctive finisher than he is when he's sort of bearing down on goal with a bit of time and a bit of space. And there's talk about Ollie Watkins' future as well. Especially if he does get this one goal to break Gabby's record. Is that him done at Aston Villa in terms of what he can achieve here? And maybe he wants to move on to a new challenge. Again, a player who's, I think, 29 again as well. So is he looking at sort of maybe a new challenge come next season, perhaps after he's broken Gabby's record? Would he be a massive loss to us? We have to align ourselves with PSR for next season as well. And obviously we have to sell players like Dougie Luiz Jean Duran, Moussa Diaby to sort of balance the books a little bit, sort of the last season. So, and this season as well in January. So we need to sort of look at that again and see, you know, what balancing needs to be done. Obviously, everything is going to be dependent on where we finish in the league. Hopefully, a top 5 finish in the Champions League again, which will make a massive difference to revenue. But if it is Europa League, and I hope it's not, because I don't want to be playing in the Europa League, then, you know, we've got to cut our cloth accordingly. And therefore, sales might need to happen. Ollie Watkins has always been an Arsenal fan. They're in desperate need of a striker, even more apparent sort of now. I don't think Ollie Watkins is the striker that Arsenal need. I don't think he's prolific enough or consistent enough. I think he misses too many chances. You know, they'd probably be better off going off after an Alexander Isak type striker who's more clinical. So I don't think Ollie Watkins will take Arsenal to, you know, title contenders or Champions League contenders if they went and signed him. And if that's what they think would happen, then they're very much mistaken. He's not that quality of striker, in my opinion. So, you know, there's lots of sort of rumours going around, but the Fulham game, going back to it just slightly, started off well enough. Possession was good. We had chances, took the lead early on. I think the 12th minute corner from John McGinn, a lovely, bullet header from Yuri Tielemans, which Leno got a hand to but couldn't keep out. And it's 1-0 Aston Villa at that point, and you just feel like, okay, you know, can we kick on now, and can we get a couple more to this? Fulham didn't really have too much of a threat on going forward, I would say. I think I was quite disappointed in them. They had Jimenez playing, Iwobi playing there as well. Sessegnon scored a goal, but rightly disallowed because it hit his hand before he struck it in the second half. But very little kind of threat really from Fulham. They were peppering the goal a bit. I mean, they looked more dangerous actually when they went down to 10 men in the last sort of 10 minutes, 12 minutes of including stoppage time. You know, they were sort of putting balls into the box and things like that, but nothing really sort of bouncing for them too much. And then Villa had chances. I think Daniel Marlon coming on after 70 minutes was a good sub, and he looked dangerous and lively, gives you something on the shoulder. Ollie Watkins likes to sort of run the channels, but Marlon is pure pace. And it was a lovely move to set him free late on in the game, which he rattled the crossbar with as well. I mean, I don't know how Ollie Watkins felt being dragged after 70 minutes, especially when he's still chasing down this goal-scoring record and having missed 2 real good opportunities to make a difference. I mean, you know, I'm not sure what the stats are on this, but I'm sure I saw somewhere that he's missed the most big chances. So, you know, he could have really sort of doubled his goal tally for the season for whatever he's on now. He could have had double that. We have created chances for him and big chances, and for one reason or another, he's just not taken them. But I thought Marlon looked good when he came on. Onana sort of settled things down a little bit. I thought John McGinn was doing well, and he came off quite early. I thought he was one of our better players. And then another player who's coming for a lot of flack is Matty Cash at right back. Obviously, he would have had an assist on his name if Ollie Watkins converted that chance early in the second half. You know, there was a chance in the first half, which I think I mentioned in my match reaction, where in the 40th minute we played a nice sweeping counter-attack move. I think Asensio swept it out wide to Cash, and Cash is literally one-on-one against a Fulham defender, but he just doesn't have the confidence to go past him or even put the ball forward to anyone. So he checks back, plays it back, and it ends up going all the way back to, I think, Emi Martinez in the end, after sort of being a really sort of positive sort of counter-attacking move. So this is a player that we probably need to replace in next season. I think Matty Cash's days are numbered. I can't see him settling for being a backup at Villa. I think we've signed Andres Garcia as that kind of young, up-and-coming backup option. Nedeljkovic looks like he's on his way to Leipzig. Matty Cash, I don't think he would want to stick around as a backup. But I think it's a position that we need to improve. You know, if we get forward up the pitch, we need to have players that are comfortable, you know, playing further forward, like an Ian Martin. You can see him now getting into the team and taking Luca Digne's place, and maybe that is going to be for the long haul, you know. So this is what we need on the opposite side as well. And yeah, defensively we looked okay. Obviously, no Tyrone Mings in this. Konsa making one error in the game, and you know, you could see it. Unai Emery absolutely losing his shit at him. Absolutely. I've never seen Unai Emery that irate before. But it was obviously a pass from Konsa which got intercepted, which led to a Fulham up break, and then Fulham almost scored for him. I think it's Harry Wilson gets a foot to it, and luckily it's it doesn't get too much contact, and Martin is able to pick it out of the air. But Unai Emery from the touchline was absolutely giving Konsa, giving him a right telling off. So I think it was all done and dusted by the full-time whistle. But Emery showed a lot of emotion there. And we were worthy winners. We could have won by more. We probably perhaps should have won by more. But you always felt like, is this going to be the Bournemouth game all over again? At 96-minute equaliser from 10-man Fulham. It had that kind of written in the stars, really. But luckily, we got through it. We got through the full-time whistle, and we were 1-0 up. And, we won the game, got a clean sheet as well. And we're still in that hunt for Champions League. Obviously, the results since then have been, Chelsea beating Liverpool, which was a bit of a surprise. And then obviously Crystal Palace holding Nottingham Forest yesterday, which is good for us. Just keeps them within sort of touching distance. But we've got to go and do our job now against Bournemouth on Saturday, which is going to be a tricky task. I thought Evan Nilsson was going to be suspended after his red card against Man United. I mean, was that a straight red card or was it 2 yellows? It must have been 2 yellows then, because obviously he came up with the winner against Arsenal. So he's obviously fit and available, which makes him a stronger team. And we've got to be wary of the likes of a Semenyo, who's obviously another danger player for them as well. And they're a very, very good team. So we need to be very careful there. But I think that's going to be a really strong game, a difficult game. Bournemouth have still got Conference League qualification in their sights. I think it's up to 8th position. So, they're very much in contention for that. I don't want to be playing Europa League, as I mentioned earlier, especially now that it's going to be either Tottenham or United contesting Tottenham and United contesting the final by the looks of it. I don't want to be going to that competition wanting to win it, having one of those two as the holders. Just takes the gloss off it a little bit, if you know what I mean. So I want Champions League. Hopefully we can get it. Chelsea have got a tough run in by the looks of it. There are points to be dropped. I think a couple of the teams, Chelsea, Newcastle got to play. I think Chelsea got to play Nottingham Forest as well, just out of memory. But so it's going to be an interesting kind of run-in, really, to see how the season sort of finishes up. And then obviously going on to the club news that we've had, Chris Heck announcing that he's going to leave the club at the end of the season. I think due to sort of family issues and wanting to relocate back to America. Absolutely fine. I haven't had too many issues with what he's been doing. Obviously, I don't go to the games as much as many Villa fans do. And what I've heard from other podcasters who do go to the games is that sometimes the experiences can be better. Sometimes the facilities can be better. Even the things like going down at halftime, getting food and drink, it takes too long. Even the things like the toilets need looking at and cleaning on a regular basis, and just little things like that. And obviously Chris Heck, with the Champions League campaign, he kind of put one price for all the games rather than having it sort of staggered like the tiering system. He just said, no, every single Champions League game, it's going to be the same price. And I mean, every game was a sellout. I suppose it worked quite well. So you weren't paying more for like the likes of the Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich games than you were for like the Bologna games, for example. So it kind of worked out fine in the end, but it was still very, very expensive. It priced a lot of people out, including myself, out of the opportunity to get down to Villa Park and see us in the Champions League live. Fans like myself had to sort of watch from the TV and stuff like that. So I mean, he's done a lot of good. Obviously, the redevelopment of the stadium as well is taking shape, and I think Chris Heck's had a massive input into that. The new club shop's looking good as well, from what I can see from the pictures. So he has done some good, but then there are other areas which were lacking for him as well. And from what I hear about him as a person, he's not very not really approachable, I suppose. I think one sort of fellow podcaster mentioned that he had to have an opportunity to sort of meet with him, and first impressions do count. And the first impression that he got was that he's not the sort of person that you could have a great sort of long conversation with. It wasn't, it didn't give that sort of warm feeling around sort of the hospitality side of it as well. But he's done a lot of good things. But you guys, Villa fans that go week in, week out, will know more about what the feeling is like down at Villa Park. Let me know in the comments. Is there positive for Chris Eck? And are there negatives for his tenure at Aston Villa? And then obviously we're looking to bring someone in that can help on that side. I'm not sure who that's going to be, and there's no name sort of mentioned at the moment, but I'm sure that Nassif and Wes have got someone in mind for that already. And then finally, just moving on to the sort of under 18s FA Youth Cup win yesterday. Fantastic. A win, 3-1 victory against Manchester City. And really, going a goal behind after only a couple of minutes, trying to play out from the back, got robbed, and they scored after like 2 minutes. And then after that, Villa just fighting back. A goal from a corner, TJ Carroll, I think, getting on the end of it. Nice little header there to equalise. And then a belting goal from Cole Brannigan, edge of the box, like absolutely fires it into the sort of the top corner, I think it was in the end. Yeah, sort of 2-1 at half time, and Villa playing some good football. Got some good little young players there. TJ Carroll, Aidan Boyland, and Jamar Aloba as well, who scored the third goal, sort of cutting in from the left and a low drive, sort of taking the keeper by surprise, I think, and sort of wrapping up the 3-1 win for us against Manchester City, which is a really, really good. Man City have got a really strong academy. They've had strong academy for a long time, and see Villa go there and beat them. Well, go to Villa Park and beat them was an absolute tremendous result. And then if you look back the previous years, the last time that Villa won the FA Youth Cup was in 2021. We beat Liverpool 2-1. And then that lineup there, I mean, not many of the players from that lineup have gone on to make first team appearances. We've had the likes of Carney Chukwuemeka in that lineup, who's obviously now at Chelsea. It was breaking through under Gerrard. And Louis Barry is there as well, who's currently doing his thing on loan at Hull City now, I think he is, or he's something like that. Kessler Hayden on loan at Preston. Aaron Ramsey, Burnley, just got promoted with them. Lamar Bogard, probably the one big success story, who's probably played Champions League for Villa, played in the Premier League for Villa. So he's probably the one big success story to come out of that 2021 FA Youth Cup team. And he's not getting into the matchday squads of late, but he's probably the success story. Cy Swinkles on loan at Bristol Rovers. Philip Marshall on loan at, I think it's MK Dons. Tommy O'Reilly, I think also at MK Dons. Arjun Reiki, last I heard he was at Leicester's under 23s. Seb Raven, Hereford, I think. Ben Crisene, Blackburn Rovers, I think now. And then Brad Young is probably the other success story out of the group who actually did score in that game. He's playing out in Qatar. So it just goes to show that just because those players do really well, it's only like maybe one of those players will go on to have any sort of career at Aston Villa. And you've got to say Lamar Bogard is probably the only one there. That's likely to sort of be retained perhaps, but even he might be loaned out again. And then if we're looking back a few more years before that was 2002, Villa's last FA Cup youth win as well, a 4-1 win at Villa Park, and then a 1-0 defeat at Goodison against Everton. So it was over 2 legs, obviously a 4-2 win on aggregate. And in that lineup, we had the likes of the Moore brothers, so Stefan and Luke. And Stefan Moore got 2 goals in this. Luke Moore got 1 goal. We had Stephen Davis, who's gone on to have a really good career, with Fulham, with Rangers, a couple of other teams that he's played for as well. Liam Ridgewell was there in that lineup as well. Played a few games for Villa in his time. Peter Whittingham, obviously now passed away, but he was part of that lineup as well. And then they had Wayne Rooney on the opposite side, scoring for Everton in that 4-1 defeat. But yeah, so it just goes to show that not many players will go on to kind of make it. Will be difficult. Luke and Stefan Moore had, okay careers, couple of good seasons with Aston Villa, and then kind of moved on. The Liverpool team that we played in 2021, as I mentioned, beat them 2-1, contained the likes of Conor Bradley and Jarell Quansah, who are now in Liverpool's kind of first team squad. So, there's it's just difficult to say which of these players are going to go on and have careers at Aston Villa. I think Aloba has been touching the squad a little bit recently in training with the first team. The rest of them I don't know too much about, but hopefully they can kick on, and they're obviously still very young. Loan spells out for them will be great. We've got, links with Real Union, which we're seeing quite a few players go to. We've got good links with League One and League Two sides as well now. We've had successful loan spells for like Louis Barry at Stockport. So there are opportunities. Luke Kessler-Hayden's doing well at Preston. There are opportunities for these guys to go out on loan and get experience, which is what they're going to need. So yeah, congratulations to all of them. Great performance. Saw the highlights of the game. Really good performance. And I hope some of them are sort of reaching the Aston Villa first team in the years to come. But, let's see. And then just to finish up on, I want to talk a little bit about transfers. Obviously, there's been a talk and a flurry of people saying that Matty Cash needs to be replaced, which I've just touched on. Ollie Watkins to Arsenal again. The rumours are circulating, especially end of the season, especially if he breaks Gabby's record. I can see that happening. I can see Watkins leaving in the summer. And then we're looking at sort of replacing him. Liam Delap's been mentioned, the 30 million buyout clause. We've been linked with Espanyol goalkeeper. Does that mean Emi Martinez might be looking at a move? He's going to be 32, I think he is, already 32. Does he want to have one last massive payday in maybe Qatar somewhere? Or does a Barcelona come in for him? They've, had to get Wojciech Szczesny out of retirement to play in goal for them recently. Do they fancy Emi Martinez for their goalkeeper for the next couple of seasons? And would he want to play for Barcelona? A team that ultimately one of his heroes, Lionel Messi, is a legend at. So I think it's going to be quite busy in the summer. Do we keep hold of players like Ross Barkley? He's done well when he's come in, but he's had injuries. He's been in and out of the team. Does he want to play more regularly for a team? I can see Everton maybe coming back in for him, perhaps. There's lots. Leon Bailey's been linked with Saudi as well. Luca Digne's obviously coming into the last year or so of his contract. Do we sort of cash in on him while he's still got some value there? Mings also. There's talks about Boubacar Kamara signing the contract, which I really hope he does. Jacob Ramsey, PSR point of view, is there someone that comes in with a really big bid for Jacob Ramsey, and we look at it as pure profit? So these are all stuff that's going on at the moment, and the incomings, you're obviously looking at the Espanyol goalkeeper, perhaps. We were linked with Samu, the FC Porto striker, now as well. I think Unai's been watching, but whether we can get him or not too sure. And then Asensio, do we go out and buy him? He's going to cost a lot of money in wages as well. And I said hardly any resale value at 29 years of age. Does he present us with a problem in a couple of years' time? He hasn't really hit the heights of his early start, and this might be recency bias, but you asked me a month ago, I would have signed him. You ask me now, I'm having doubts, because he's affecting Morgan Rogers' play and his position in the team. Do we need to go in for anyone else? Jack Grealish return has been moved to. Douglas Luiz has been talked about. These are all sort of players. I mean, who would you like to see sort of coming in, and what rumours are there that are circulating? There's an Osasuna centre-back that's been linked recently as well. So it's getting to that point now where we've got to start thinking ahead. But I think it all depends on what kind of European football we secure. If it's Champions League, then you're able to attract the better players. If it's Europa League, then it's obviously a lower tier player, perhaps. So it all depends on that. Carlos Buena from Villarreal, that rumour doesn't go away. I think Unai Emery is still a big fan of his. So there's a lot of players that are being linked around. I mean, I touched upon Denzel Dumfries sort of, last summer, saying, he'd be a tremendous signing for us. And he was a little bit out of favour at Inter at that point. But now, obviously, he's back in favour and scoring goals in semi-finals and things like that. So I think he's probably well out of our range now. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on who we should be looking at, what players realistically are available. Does Liam Delap, does he come in as a replacement for Ollie Watkins? Would you be happy with that? 30 million for Delap, selling Ollie Watkins for 60 million. Delap, a younger player, knows Morgan Rogers really well. He grew up in the academy at Man City with him. Could that work really well? He's obviously shown that he can get goals in the Premier League at a low team like Ipswich. Could he really, really shine at Aston Villa? I think maybe he could. And will he be that clinical striker that we really, really want to see up front? I'm sure there'll be other clubs sniffing around him as well, but that's just a player that really sort of interest me. Brian and Bremo from Brentford is another one who I think is a really good player and could move on to a bigger team. There are quite a few players like that. There's quite a few players. If you go around the Premier League, you look at the likes of Bournemouth, Semenyo looks like a good player. There's little player that you can pick from each team that would improve Aston Villa. But also we need to look at our squad and PSR as well. Eze's obviously been linked as well with Villa. Love to see Eze at Villa. But yeah, guys, I'm going to end it there because otherwise I'm rambling on and my tea's getting cold. But yeah, if you like the video, please like, subscribe. I'll be back at you again with a match preview for the Bournemouth game later this week. And until then, enjoy the working week. Bye for now.